Welcome back, team. Mr. Rasmussen here. In this lesson, we are going to discuss the nitty-gritty of photosynthesis, starting with the first part, the light-dependent reaction. I showed you this chart at the beginning of at the end of our last lesson, and I like this chart because it sort of lays out how everything works, and I just sort of want to talk about that first. So there are these two reactions. There's the light reaction and the Kelvin cycle of photosynthesis. The light reaction requires a couple things. First off, it's going to require light energy to power it, and it's also going to require waste. So those two things need to go into the light reaction. Notice how the arrows are going into the reaction. Then the light reaction is going to happen, and in the light reaction, we are going to create something. So the things that are made are ATP energy and NADPH energy. Now, NADPH is just another energy molecule, a lot like ATP. And then, given off as a waste product of this light reaction is up over here, oxygen. So, that's really important to keep in mind. So going in, we're going to need to take in water, we're going to need to take in light, we're going to generate oxygen as a waste product, and then we're going to make ATP and NADPH, and those are the things that are going to go into the Kelvin cycle to power the Kelvin cycle. So just have this diagram available and ready and sort of have it near in your mind. Now, the light-dependent reaction. The light-dependent reaction takes place on the membrane of the thylakoid. So if we remember our thylakoid down here, so this is our chloroplast, and if we zoom in on a chloroplast, we have this thing here. This is a chloroplast, and it's got these little stacks called granum, and it's these little discs, the thylakoids. Well, it's on this membrane, so on the phospholipid bilayer of the thylakoids, that the light-dependent reaction takes place. Now, a key molecule that we need to keep in mind is ATP. The purpose of this whole thing, the whole purpose of the light reaction, is to generate ATP and NADPH. Go back a second. So the whole purpose is to generate ATP and NADPH. So the light reaction makes energy to power the Kelvin cycle. Okay. This is a super complicated chart, and this chart we're going to talk about a lot. I like it. I think it explains really well everything that's happening. But it happens like this. It's a time frame, and it sort of moves like this. So as you go, this would be the earliest first things that happen, and this would be the latest things that happen over here. Now, if we notice, here's our phospholipid bilayer. So this is on the thylakoid membrane. This down here, the lumen, is the space inside the thylakoid, and out here is the stroma. So this is the stroma, the fluid, and this is the thylakoid lumen, or the space inside. Now, if we take a look down here, here's the first part I want to talk about. The first thing that happens down here in your chart is number 1 down here. So that's the first thing that happens. So the first thing is water is taken in and split. So we take water and we're going to split it in this reaction into oxygen gas and hydrogen. Now we know that oxygen gas, O2 gas, is a waste product. So that's where that goes. This oxygen that's created right down here from this splitting of water is waste. We don't need it. But this hydrogen is going to become extremely important. But you notice something. It's not hydrogen, it's hydrogen plus, which means it's a hydrogen ion, which means that the electron has been removed from it. So this hydrogen, the electron has been torn off of it. And these electrons and these hydrogen ions are going to become very important to us. Okay. The second thing that happens, I want you to notice these. These are proteins on the membrane, and these are called photosystems. This one right here is photosystem 2, and this right here is photosystem 1. These are responsible for gathering light. It's on these proteins that we contain the pigments. So light hits this photosystem. So light hits that photosystem. And that photosystem takes this electron that came off of water we have this electron right here, and it gives that electron a ton of energy. It does what we call excites the electron. So the whole purpose of light is to excite electron. Light excites electrons. Okay? Now, this electron is then transported down all these different proteins. Notice how this electron, you can follow the line, it's sort of passed between these different proteins. Okay, so the electron gets passed. And as it's passed, it loses energy. So it gives off some of the energy. So now we have all this energy that's been given off. And what do we do with that energy? The answer is we do active transport of hydrogen. We pump a whole bunch of hydrogen atoms into the thylakoid lumen. So look here, these hydrogens over here are being pumped into the thylakoid lumen. So we're going to build up a high concentration of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid lumen. So as the electrons are passed, they're giving off energy, and that energy is being used to pump hydrogen ions, active transport, into the thylakoid lumen. Then if we go down here, we notice we have a electron now that's lost all of its energy. That electron that we just passed lost all of its energy. And what we're going to do is it's going to come over here to photosystem 1, and light is going to hit photosystem 1 again. Light is then going to excite this electron. Now, instead of passing this electron down again, we're going to do something. We're going to store it. We're going to store that high energy electron in this molecule called NADPH. So NADPH, the best way to think of it, is like a bucket. It stores high energy electrons. We put it in the bucket. We can fill it up with high energy electrons, and then we can dump it off, and then we can go somewhere and fill it up again. But NADPH is a high energy electron bucket. Okay? Now, what we have down here is we have a whole bunch of hydrogen atoms at the bottom. So a whole bunch of hydrogens have been built up. What we are going to do, they naturally, because there's a high concentration of hydrogen down here, because we did a bunch of active transport, and a low concentration here, they're going to want to come rushing through to this side. We've built up a concentration gradient. So what we do is we force these little hydrogen things, hydrogen ions, to come through this protein called ATP synthase. ATP synthase works like a water wheel. If you kind of understand a river and a water wheel, as the river rushes by, or as a dam goes, it spins this wheel, and this wheel generates energy for us. Well, this works the same way. ATP synthase, as the hydrogens come rushing through, ATP synthase is going to spin and generate ATP for us. So ATP synthase is a little generator. It takes this flow of hydrogen ions from high concentration to low to spin the generator to generate ATP energy for us. So here's that whole picture together, and I'll just walk through it real quick. The first step down here, 1, we split water, and we get hydrogen ions, which we're eventually going to send through ATP synthase. Plus, we get some electrons that we rip off the hydrogen. Those electrons get hit by light, they get excited, and after they get excited, they get passed down these different proteins in the membrane. As they get passed down, the energy that's given off by this electron is used to pump hydrogens into the thylakoid lumen. Now, as it gets down here, the electron loses energy, and it gets down here to photosystem 1, where it is struck by light again. Light excites the electron, and the electron is stored in NADPH. That is our electron story. But that's only half of this. The big thing that happens is these hydrogen ions have been building up in the lumen, and we've created a high concentration of hydrogen ions. That high concentration of hydrogen ions rushes through ATP synthase like a water wheel or a river generator, and it turns ATP synthase and generates ATP. So the main purpose of all of this, the whole point of all of this, was to create those two molecules. We wanted to make ATP and NADPH. Okay, so we did this whole reaction. Now oxygen was given off as a waste when we split water, but we generated ATP and NADPH that are going to power our next reaction, or the Calvin cycle. Okay, that is a light reaction to photosynthesis, class. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me as soon as possible. I would love to talk through it with you. All right, thank you very much, class. Have a good day.